Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I'm Janine Howard, just in case somebody doesn't know. Bobby Thompson, in case you don't know. He is, of course, local and is our District Lay Leader. And Jennifer Coffey, who is the pastor of Fairview Church in the city of Danville. And I want to thank everybody who is here, who's taken time to come out. And I really want to thank Jennifer and Bobby especially. This is way above and beyond in terms of their job descriptions. So I really appreciate the extra time. We've already been to First Church in Martinsville today, and they came on up the road with me, and or in separate vehicles, but we all traveled up this way, and we hope we've got some information that will be helpful for you. We're going to start, as we should, with prayer. And by the way, I do want to give a big shout out to Reverend Will Waller, who's up in the sound booth, who is taking care of us. This is being live streamed because he had some folks who wanted to make sure that it was available. So Will is taking care of all of the audio, visual, and everything upstairs, and we want to thank him for hosting us here today. So, Sandra is bringing around information sheets and some index cards. We'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But if at any point you see somebody come in, share with them until we can get something in their hands, if you would. The work of the Commission on the Way Forward, and we'll try and give you a little bit of information, a little bit of background if you're not familiar with it, has a really important component, and that component is prayer. The Commission, of course, is praying regularly. It's the group meets and studies together and prays together. It's not just a voting body of some sort. They spend a lot of time in prayer. And they have asked that we pray for them and for the work of the church. So a component of the Commission on our Way Forward work is praying our way forward. And a new cycle of that just started this weekend, and it is focused very specifically on the called General Conference in February of 2019. So I want to invite everybody into an attitude of prayer as we use the prayer requests as they have spelled them out for the focus this week. Will you pray with me, please? Holy God, you are the source of wisdom and of truth. And we are here in part to continue to seek that and to seek your will. We are also here to find ways to support the church, to support the mission and ministry of the church and those who serve in it, lay and clergy alike. So today we turn special attention to delegates to the 2019 General Conference. A member of the General Commission of the General Conference, Samuel Duncan McMillan IV. Bishop Kenneth Carter, current President of the Council of Bishops. Bishop Bruce O., immediate past President of the Council. And Bishop Cynthia Harvey, President-elect of the Council. Member of the Commission on a Way Forward, Reverend George Acevedo of the Florida Annual Conference. Member of the staff of the General Conference, Reverend Gary Graves, the Secretary of the General Conference, and Sarah Hotchkiss, Business Manager of the General Conference. And the Reverend Junius Dodson, Discipleship Ministries of the United Methodist Church. May we hold these people and those unnamed today in an embrace of love, in an embrace of power, in an embrace of full discernment for the work that they are about to do. Give them courage as they discern, give them much compassion for one another, and give them the fullest depth of your Spirit. All in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Just to give you a little bit of background and information that is already before you in the handout, but just to frame our conversation, it might be helpful to recapitulate what has brought us to this place in the church and why we're calling information meetings around the conference. If you will recall, in 2016 at the General Conference in Portland, There were a lot of proposals on issues related to same-sex marriage, ordination of LGBTQ clergy, and many other related issues. And one of the delegates said to the bishops, "We're looking for your leadership. We're stuck. Would you please help us?" So the bishops returned with a proposal for the Commission on a Way Forward. And that group, as you will see in the timeline in the block off to the side, was named in October of 2016. So since that time, that group has been meeting together. They meet periodically with the Council of Bishops, and we're at the point now where they have delivered their final report, but I need to say that a lot of details are still being worked out. So we don't have all of those details at hand. We've given you a lot of what we know is available and also lots of ways to find the latest news possible. But this is what brings us to this point, and I do want to say to you one thing further. In the timeline, it talks about the report to the bishops in May of 2018. That did occur. The bishops have received the report. As I said, that's still in stages of finalization on details. But one thing has happened subsequent to that that's pretty important, and that is on the bottom of the second page, you will see a Judicial Council decision 1360, May 25th, 2018. You will realize that was just a week ago Friday, that decision was handed down. Our Judicial Council, just in case you're perplexed, is kind of similar to a Supreme Court for the United Methodist Church. We have a three-part governance structure. We have a legislative, we have an executive, and we have the judicial branch, and that is the Judicial Council. And they responded to a particular question, and that has confused matters even more, perhaps, because now the door has been open for some legislation to be presented, but we're not sure what the criteria is going to be for what can be or cannot be presented. It does say what criteria is, but it leaves it wide open to interpretation. So that in and of itself is being worked out practically as we speak. People are trying to figure out exactly what the specifics of this mean. But this is later breaking than what was contained in the handout, 5 Things You Need to Know. That's an earlier release from the United Methodist News Organization. So we're trying to stay current, but as we were reminded at the last meeting, there are things that happened in the couple of days since we compiled these materials. We don't pretend to be the final authority on where you can locate everything, and we don't know about everything that's out there in a way that we can explain it to you, but we can certainly help direct you to it. And we will take some questions about process a little bit later on. So before we move into that area, I do want to let Bobby Thompson, our District Lay Leader, offer some more organizing principles here for us today.
Thank you. Everybody over here. Okay. All right, this may be better. The reason that we're here today, as Janine said, is that the Council of Bishops has asked that information regarding the Commission on a Way Forward and the Call General Conference 2019. Hopefully all of you have heard about that and have some basic information about that. And that this information that we have, as Janine just shared, some late-breaking news, has made readily available. And as Methodists, it is very important that we seek appropriate information from official resources. We have done our best to compile some of these today, and we'll be given those. The 3 of us were participants in a training event in Richmond in January, led by Tom Berlin, a member of the Commission on the Way Forward. And since that date, there have been many developments related to the work of the Commission. We have printed materials, 2 videos to share. We also are distributing index cards, and hopefully all of you have one or can get one, on which you can submit written questions. These will be addressed through a general communication with the district email list. Our administrative assistant, Sandra, is helping us today and keep really good notes so that we can plan our next information session to best help you understand the issues and process leading up to that general conference in 2019. We plan to convene this session sometime after July 8th, the July 8th deadline for legislative proposals. We have agreed to let the resources speak for themselves and are not going to answer questions about interpretation of potential legislation or the dynamics of the General Conference. More important, we want to invite you to be a part of the process by participating in praying our way forward. And to me, that is the best thing we can do, the most important thing we can do now is to pray for those in those positions who will be helping to decide issues coming forward. Some issues probably haven't even surfaced yet will be there. So it's very important to be a part of that. And there was a scripture that came to mind that I want to share with you as we think about praying our way forward. And it's from Proverbs, very familiar, the 3rd chapter, the 5th and the 6th verses. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek His will in all that you do, and He will direct your paths. And so I think that's very important as we pray our way forward, is to seek God's will on all these issues. And now we would like to share with you the video from Bishop Sean Lewis. Thank you.
I want us to remember that the mission of the United Methodist Church is to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. In 2016, General Conference requested the Council of Bishops to lead the church forward regarding human sexuality and unity. At last week's Spring Council of Bishops meeting, there was considerable time spent in worship, prayer, and executive sessions surrounding the work completed by the Commission on a Way Forward. From this meeting, the Council of Bishops decided to submit all 3 plans from the Commission on Way Forward: the Traditionalist Plan, the One Church Plan, and the Connectional Conference Plan, formerly known as the Multi-Branch Plan. Now, while all 3 plans received support within the Council of Bishops, the One Church Plan is the Council's recommendation, and this plan received a majority vote of the active residential bishops. It is important to remember that the ultimate decision lies with more than 800 clergy and laity, delegates from around the world who will convene at the special session for General Conference in St. Louis, Missouri, from February the 23rd to the 26th, 2019. Full details of the 3 plans, as well as accompanying legislative proposals, will be released as soon as the final editing of the entire plan is completed and translated in the various languages for our global connection, which will be no later than July 8, 2018. I know that some of you are not pleased with the recommended plan. I am also aware that some of you feel that the Council of Bishops did not lead us into being a unified denomination, disregarding our Wesleyan heritage and doctrine. And I am also aware that some of you will continue to wrestle about leaving the denomination. As your bishop, I want you to know that I will continue to lead this annual conference with a non-anxious presence. I also want to invite you all to continue to be in conversations about the 3 plans. And as I've always said, and I said this at the Bishop's Chat and Chew 2.0, not to factor out the God factor, because I truly do believe that our God is in control. I challenge you to take a deep breath and know that Jesus is still Lord. Please be in prayer for the Council of Bishops, the Commission on a Way Forward, our fellow United Methodist brothers and sisters, the Virginia delegation, and delegates from around the world as they seek to be led by the Holy Spirit in 2019. There are links provided to view the press release by the Council of Bishops and the video from Bishop Bruce O., outgoing president of the Council, at the end of this video. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. One of the questions we have received a lot lately is where can we get the information to stay on top, to have accurate, current information? What are some of the resources that our Sunday school class or our church or myself can turn to and to have access to? So today we wanted to take a few moments and share some of those resources with you from the denomination, how you can access them, what types of things are available on what sites, and that way you have that information to take with you today or back to the local church with you this afternoon. So the sheet that I'm going to be working from is the back side of that packet. We believe it's important for us to have access to accurate information, especially as we prepare for that upcoming special general conference. We live in a world that is overwhelmed by information 24/7 at the touch of a button. I did a search just this morning for UMC, Commission on a Way Forward, and in less than a minute there were 247,000 hits. There's a lot of information out there, a lot of articles, a lot of interpretations, a lot of analysis about the work, and what's coming and what's happening and what's been going on. So we want to be able to point you towards some of those resources from the United Methodist Church for this work and the upcoming conference. There are a variety of formats that this information comes in. Some are videos, some are PDFs, some are on social media, some are books, some are study guides and small group resources. So hopefully there will be something that reaches all the learning styles for you or for others that you want to share this information with. So if you'll turn to the back of your packets, I'm going to walk through some of these and hopefully give you some ideas of what's available where. The first one is our Virginia Annual Conference website. They have a dedicated space on the website for the Way Forward work, and that URL is there available for you. One of the things you'll find in this section is a timeline leading up to General Conference. On the front of the packet, our timeline goes pretty much until about last week or 2 weeks ago. The timeline on the Virginia Annual Conference website continues on to that special conference date in 2019. So you'll be able to see some of the deadlines and things that are coming up between now and February for the Council and Bishops for when those proposals are due, and just that work that's taking place between now and February across the denomination. They have a link and access to the Train the Trainer event, which is the event that Bobby, Janine, and I attended in January, led by Reverend Tom Berlin, who's a member on that Commission Way Forward. He did a presentation that's available via PowerPoint, as well as PDF and some videos, a live stream of that training event, which is intended to help congregations have conversations around difficult topics. It provides resources, ways to engage conversation, ways to be in covenant together, how to have those dialogues, what sort of resources to use, including books and polls and some study guides and curriculum as well. There is a small group curriculum that has been developed by one of our churches in the Virginia Conference, and that's available from this website as well to use if that's something in your local church that you want to bring a group together to do and to be engaged in that kind of dialogue together in a small group setting with leaders or in the class. There are also a lot of book suggestions along with discussion guides on the Virginia Conference website as well. Pull up the book list. I did not print these for y'all today, but I wanted to show you. They've got some book recommendations on that Virginia Conference website. This is front and back that I printed off. They have some that they call Across the Spectrum books, which are resources that wrestle with Christian faith and LGBT inclusion. Those titles include Washed and Waiting, Reflections on Christian Faithfulness and Homosexuality, Two Views on Homosexuality, the Bible and the Church, and a third book, Bible, Gender, and Sexuality. And then they also have a section called Beyond the Spectrum, which provides some book suggestions for resources that empower healthy conversations. The Anatomy of Peace is one of those books, Unity of the Church and Human Sexuality, and then The Good News About Conflict. So those are just a few examples of some of the book resources that are available that you can get connected with on the Virginia Conference website for the way forward. Again, pointing you to resources for yourself or for congregation. Our global denomination, the United Methodist Church, has its own dedicated space on their website as well with more resources. That's the second site here, the United Methodist Church one, Commission on a Way Forward. They include information there about the mission of the Commission on the Way Forward, why it was set up, who the members of that commission are. There's 32 members, who they are, the scope of their work. So what does that work look like over these past 2 years? What have they done when they have come together? What does that prayer and discernment and that covenant look like for those 32 members? And then what is that vision that they have been working towards with the Council of Bishops? The next site is the Council of Bishops. They have their own website and a dedicated portion of that for the Commission on a Way Forward work. And that provides some of their news releases from the bishops, like the one from Bishop Lewis that we saw today. Other bishops, the Council of Bishops have put out news releases, and so those videos and articles are available through their website, as well as moderator updates. So the moderator for the Commission on a Way Forward was one of the bishops, and so that bishop provided updates to the council, and those updates are available on this website as well. The last website we have listed here is the United Methodist Communications, which is our United Methodist news service. And those are going to have any number of news releases and articles that they have published throughout the years. You can do a search there, and there will be a number of articles available covering the General Conference, Commission on a Way Forward, releases from the bishop, from annual conferences, any number of United Methodist happenings around the Way Forward Commission. And lastly, we have included social media information because there's also a lot of ways to stay up to date and to follow this information on social media sites through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Google+. So if you are online in any way, you should be able to get connected through one of those to stay up to date with these resources as well. We hope that will be helpful to know where to go and some places to stay connected and to stay current. Again, lots of video options, book options, any sort of way that you might connect or prefer to be involved. One of the other videos we have for you this afternoon comes from Reverend Lindsay Bainham. She is on staff at the conference office for the Virginia Annual Conference. And she put together a video in preparation for our upcoming annual conference that gives kind of the framework for our structure as the United Methodist Church. And we wanted to share that today as a helpful reminder and information for how we function and live together as United Methodist people from the local to the global arena, if you will.
Hey friends, Lindsay Bainham here. I am the pastor in the Virginia Annual Conference, and I just wanted to take a second of your time, maybe a little bit longer, to talk about our polity and structure within the body of Christ, and more specifically, the United Methodist Church. As you remember, John and Charles Wesley started as a grassroots movement seeking reform and renewal. Flash forward to your local church settings now, they are filled with people that through our baptism are called to be a part of what God is already doing, how the Spirit is already moving. In those faith communities, there are persons who are called and set apart as clergy to shepherd, to be in ministry with the lay people. Maybe you meet in a school, maybe you meet in a storefront, I don't know. But all of those different faith communities are connected to a district. In Virginia, we have In Virginia, we have 16 districts, and each of those are led by a district superintendent. This person is the pastor to the pastors, giving them guidance, walking alongside them, seeking to connect the mission and ministry of each district. Seeking to connect the mission and ministry of each district. Now, the 16 districts make up the Virginia Annual Conference. This conference meets every year, and from these local churches, from the districts, a set number of people are sent to the annual conference to celebrate the ministry that has happened all year long and to do some business of the church. But not all of Virginia is one conference. No, this little piece right here goes to the Holston Conference. And so you'll remember in 2015, the annual conference voted and elected people to send to the jurisdictional conference as well as the general conference. And we will be sending these same people to the called conference in February of 2019. So the annual conference, Virginia is a part of the southeastern jurisdiction. This is Virginia down to Florida and over to Mississippi. This is a group of people that are, again, coming from the local churches through the annual conference to this body that elects and appoints bishops. Outside of the U.S., these are called central conferences. Again, from the local church to the annual conference to the southeast, we are electing people then to the General Conference. The General Conference is made up of the Council of Bishops, both active and retired bishops, boards and agencies finding ways to equip and resource and be in ministry with folk all around the world, and the Judicial Council that speaks to how we are living in our guidelines through the Book of Discipline. Just to recap, our folks on the grassroots level in our local churches and our districts are being sent to the annual conference. This meets annually, and this body is voting and sending a group of delegates to the General Conference, which meets every 4 years, as well as the Southeastern Jurisdictional Conference, which meets every 4 years. The folk who Virginia voted for and sent in 2015 will also be the same group of people who will be going to St. Louis in February for the called General Conference. I know that's a lot of information, but here's the good news. There is a free and accessible resource for you, for your church leadership and your councils, the United Methodist Church Handbook, which lays out all of this polity and structure.
Okay, there you go. We want to take a few minutes just to see if we can help you with any issues you have regarding the process. We're not here to address the content of legislation, petitions to the General Conference. We just want to make sure that you leave here feeling like you are equipped with the resource list and appropriate answers to your questions about how can you find out what's going on, how can you go to reliable sources to get that information. The reality is, as Jennifer said, there is a lot of information out there. A lot of it is not that helpful. A lot of it is based on speculation, opinion, interpretations of various sorts, and we want to kind of keep you in the mainstream of the official documents and resources so that you can stay informed. The process is not meant to be mystifying. The problem is that things are changing very rapidly with this, just like the Judicial Council decision that I pointed out to you a few minutes ago. There are pieces of it that are continuing to unfold for us. So we want to answer any questions you have about the process. And we also want to encourage you, one, if you're not the kind of person to raise your hand and pose a question, write it down on the index card we gave you. And if there's something that we don't get to, please write it on that index card. Sandra has a box or a bin over here on the front pew. And we're going to do a general announcement, as Bobby said, a general communication to the district, and list the questions and list the answers. If you'd like a more specific answer to something directed right to you to make sure you get it, include your email address, if you will, and that will help. Right. What he's asking, for those of you who couldn't hear perhaps, were you going to restate that? Okay. He wanted to know how the Judicial Council decision affects the submitting petitions and legislation. We're not sure yet, because the Judicial Council decision is subject to its own brand of interpretation. It does talk about the legislation being in harmony with the scope and the vision, as Jennifer talked about, of the Commission on the Way Forward. What was it tasked to do? And then what was the Council of Bishops originally asked to do at the General Conference of 2016? So you kind of have to keep on going back to that when that was brought up at the General Conference. We don't know exactly what they mean by harmony. It could be very broad or it could be very narrow. So we have as yet to learn how that will be applied. It's certainly going to have an impact, but we do not yet know what that impact might be. Right. Now, certainly the called General Conference was specifically directed to the action of the bishops, the action that was requested of the bishops. So their report and their recommendations are going to be produced and submitted. This deals with things other than the official Council of Bishops recommendations. Other questions? It doesn't have to be. No, it could be like 3 years ago. We really cannot dictate how that body will act. And that's why we don't really want to talk too much about the dynamics, because nobody realized that going into 2016 we were going to come out on this side of it. So it is, I wouldn't even want to speculate about any aspect of it. Yes? Yes. Yes. When General Conference meets, there's a 270-day deadline prior to the meeting of the General Conference. That's in the Book of Discipline. They need to have legislation in hand, and that is the July 8th date. That is in some of the information that I think we have given to you. I'm pretty sure it's included. It's certainly available on various of the websites. That is a really critical date, because this is when we will get to see the bishop's recommendation in full. Right now we have descriptions of it, but it's not the actual recommendation. It's not the proposed legislation that has to come along with that. Yes, because of the Judicial Council decision, that opens the door for other possibilities. So it could be that other things will be submitted prior to July 8th, and it could be that things would come from the floor, because that's the customary way in which things happen at General Conference. And that's why the Judicial Council decision was so important, is because it needed to define how this General Conference was different from others, so that they know what the rules are that they're playing by here. So July 8th is a date that gives us an opportunity to actually see something from the work of the Commission in conjunction with the Council of Bishops. Bishop Lewis spoke to the fact that it needs to be translated. I think there's still details being worked out, but it may well be it's going to be July 8th until we see it because of the translation issues. Because to be fair to our partners around the globe, we want to make sure they have the same access that the English-speaking world has. So it could be that we're going to be waiting that long before we can actually get our eyes on it. And just so you know, after that, depending on questions we receive and depending on the direction of our resident bishop and of the Council of Bishops, what we will try to do is provide at least one more information session to help people understand better what's going to happen next February as best we can. It all depends. We don't know yet. We don't know exactly how this is going to be put forward. July 8th, again, is going to be the date where we'll know. I think that's subject to a lot of interpretation. Let me say one thing that we're doing as a district in the next 6 to 8 months. The district clergy meet in peer study groups, so regionally, geographically located. For the last couple of years, we've been reading some books together in small groups and then having a wrap-up session, a full day to share together across the whole district. Also to give the clergy a day just to be all together in one place, if at all possible, and have some facilitated discussion and some valuable time together. This coming year, we're going to read together The Anatomy of Peace, which is one of the books that Jennifer noted earlier. That is the book that the Commission on a Way Forward chose to use for their formation as a group of people, so that they weren't just 32 individuals with opinions and desires of their own, but they really sought to come together prayerfully and with open spirits in order that they could gain deeper understanding, both of themselves and of the others. And that was a really critical piece of their work. So at the suggestion of one of our clergy a couple months ago, I said maybe it'd be a good idea for our clergy to read that together so that we have a sense of how the Commission prepared themselves for it. And I hope we can then help that become part of how we carry on the dialogue with our congregations. So I just want you to know we're doing some other things to help prepare people and to make sure that they are capable and feel fully equipped to conduct and to facilitate conversations. Yes?
What the yes vote for this proposal that the bishops are putting forward have the effect of completely isolating foreign opposition?
Could you say that again? I didn't hear it clearly. I'm sorry, my ears are not working very well today.
a yes vote for this proposal that the commission has put forward, if it is approved, will it have the result of completely isolating the foreign conferences?
That I don't know because we still don't have the recommendation. So I wouldn't even, that would be irresponsible of me to even say one way or the other.
Well, it's my understanding that the recommendation from the commission was to basically go to a multi-church plan in which everybody did whatever they pleased.
It's the one that the bishops are forwarding that they voted on as a majority is the one church plan. But of course, I can't speak to any of them because we do not have the final product. Again, it would be, I would be misleading everybody here if I tried to even speak to that. Okay. I do want to remind you, drop off index cards. You feel free to email me at the district office. And I hope that I am speaking faithfully on behalf of my colleagues here. If you, for instance, feel a need to have conversation at the local church level and we can arrange it, I think at least two, if not all three of us, would try to help you with that. Share the same materials and any updates that we have. Quite honestly, it may be that until the release of the final recommendation, there's not a whole lot of point in doing that. We just want to get you ready at this moment for when that's released, so that if you want to do homework ahead of time and be prepared to read the recommendation from the Council of Bishops and to read it with a lot of understanding, that's where you are when, on that date, that you will be ready to go. So that would be my hope as a result of today's session. Oh, yes, maybe Jennifer can speak to that from her resource list.
The overviews of, yes, those would be probably available on all of these sites. Certainly the Council of Bishops site would have any of their news releases and official things that they have put out from the council, as well as the Commission on a Way Forward, where they have the news releases. Mm-hmm.
They're trying to be very careful about how much they put out before it is finalized and before it's translated. Again, it's a question of courtesy and respect regarding access. So they're not being, it's not a secretive thing, it's just protecting the dignity and worth of everybody who's part of the connection. Yes?
Can you give a brief summary of what the three proposals are? The reason being is, as you said yourself, there's a lot of information, a lot of misinformation. Just a brief summary of perhaps what's out there, because when you go to the umc.org, away forward, there's a YouTube video, but then it's just about the people who are in the committee. So is there like a little summary that you guys can put in some layman's terms for us here? Nothing that's pinpoint, we don't want you to pinpoint yourself or anything like that, but is there a summary of the three proposals that you could kind of lay out, or?
There is, but it's almost premature to discuss that at this point. For all the reasons I've already laid out, is that until they finalize it's kind of using energy that we don't need to have to be using until they finalize it. Because they could change some things from the press releases that have gone out. There could be things that change before July 8th. Now, put it on the card, and we'll send you the link to whatever we find to be the most useful summary of that. I don't have any inside information on it. Bishop Lewis reports back to the cabinet, but it is sort of in the same general terms for the same reasons that I'm using very general terminology with you all today. I'm not trying to obfuscate. It's just that I don't want people to invest too much in a particular sentence if that sentence doesn't exist in the final product. And certainly there is so much more than just a sketch of those proposals. There's legislation that goes along with it. And I think what will be better is for people to dive deep into that if they're so inclined, and I hope so, but that they'll dive deep into that when that's available. And we will certainly make that available to you from the district office. If you're not on the district e-news, the weekly e-news, Sandra does a great job and puts out excellent information. If you're not on it already, put that on your little card. Say, I want to be on the e-news list for the weekly updates. We will not withhold any of that information. We'll get it to you as fast as we can. Before I ask Bobby if he will dismiss us with prayer, I do want to remind you that included in your handout is a press release related to praying our way forward. And that gives you some instruction on how to access that. Be informed, be in prayer. That's the best advice I can give right now. So as I turn this over to Bobby, we're praying now, and we're going to continue to pray in the weeks and months to come.
Thank you, and I also would like to thank everyone for being here this afternoon to take part. It is important that we are as informed as we can be as the process goes forward. So if you're able, let's stand for prayer, please. Heavenly Father, as you've heard, we have lots of questions. We have ideas and opinions that we're not sure are on track, but we serve a God who knows all those things. And so I think the best thing that we can do is always pray that your will be done in this issue and all issues that we face as Christian people. We thank you for the people who came out to get information. We thank you for their interest. We thank you for them being able to go back to their churches and congregation and families and share what they know and share these resources. We just pray for all those who are going to be involved in making this decision. Again, Heavenly Father, that you will be present with those decisions and that they will be within your will. We thank you for this church and allowing us to meet here, and we just pray for everyone's safety and safe travel as they go home. And we ask everything in Jesus' name. Amen.